Hey, it's almost Valentine's Day, so it's only natural that we get an onslaught of romantic movies to watch. Marry Me hit theaters, but is also available on Peacock, and it stars Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson, who get married on sort of a whim. Is this movie love at first sight? Are you going to want a divorce after watching it? Music superstars Kat and Bastian are getting married before a global audience of fans. But when Kat learns, seconds before her vows, that Bastian has been unfaithful, she decides to marry a stranger in the crowd instead. So like I said, this stars J-Lo and Owen Wilson. Now Lopez is playing a superstar pop singer, which really isn't much of a stretch, but when her fiance is discovered to have cheated on her, she decides to marry just this random dude from the crowd at her concert. So for this to work, you're going to have to suspend a ton of disbelief. But if you do, I really think that you can have a lot of fun with this rom-com. Owen Wilson as Charlie is low-key and very reserved, which I think is a great contrast to Jennifer Lopez's Kat. Their lifestyles just couldn't be any more different, but I think that's also what makes some of this so charming. Charlie has to learn to loosen up a bit and take more risks in life, while Kat needs to learn to be a little more independent and also then a little more reserved. I enjoyed the chemistry between the two as they talk, joke, and just get to know each other. That includes getting to know each other's names. And this is after they've been married. Now, the comedy in this works to varying degrees, but when they're being sweet and cutesy, that's when the humor resonates. Sarah Silverman also stars in this, along with John Bradley, and they both also bring just some charm and wit to it. Now, personally, I'm not a huge Sarah Silverman fan, but I liked her in this role. She was playing a great friend and then cheerleader to Charlie. Obviously, the situations in this are very far-fetched and pretty unrealistic, but I overlooked it in favor of just taking in something lighthearted. Now, there are some technical oddities in this that did bother me, and some of them I just really can't even figure out why or how they were there. Now, a few of the sequences where Kat is performing at a concert, they're cut and edited like we're watching a music video. And I think that would be perfectly acceptable and normal if the performance that we were watching was a music video. But these are at a concert, so we as the audience are viewers in the crowd, just like the thousands of other people. We just get a better view of the performers. There are so many quick cuts and then bouncing between angles that it became distracting, and I was just wishing for some lockdown shot where I could watch part of the performance take place. Now, the other oddity is with the film itself. I watched this on Peacock, and it's presented in a letterbox format. And there were multiple times where the people or even backgrounds that are on the far sides of the screen were stretched vertically so that they looked wildly unnatural. Like if a person was in the center of the frame, but then the camera panned, the character would all of a sudden become very tall and skinny. Just abnormally so. And this was most evident when there would be people on the sides of the screens, as well as people in the center of the frame. The ones in the center were all the correct proportion, but those on the sides, they were just freakishly squished. And the weirdest part about this was that it didn't happen all the time, but there was enough that it was noticeable and then distracting. But this latter oddity, it didn't detract from any enjoyment. I was just more bizarre and noticeable than anything. The progression of this is pretty predictable, and the film follows a very safe and well-used formula. We know our characters will get to know each other by spending time together. Then there will be the moment that clicks and they just fall for each other. And then there will be that moment of great conflict where the relationship and their future comes into question, only to be resolved later on for just this happy ending. Now, the story takes us through all of these stages, but there were some times where it lingered just a bit too long. Now, this was done a few times where the scenes weren't really adding anything new to the story and they weren't progressing the narrative forward. Now, it's not like the scenes were bad and they were blatant portions where I was just wishing the entire scenes would have been cut, but the overall runtime did start to feel a little long, which then led me to examining pieces of mini scenes that could have been trimmed. Now, aside from the music video-esque cuts of the concert scenes, the bizarre screen wonkiness, and even the length, I loved how positive this movie was. Even in the midst of a part of the story dealing with infidelity, it's all handled in a pretty upbeat manner. I know that's probably very unrealistic, but I appreciated that the overall tone of the story remained sweet and hopeful. And there are even a few powerful self-confidence affirmations that are passed along to characters, which I think just endeared me even more to the leads. So overall, I enjoyed Marry Me for the optimistic rom-com that it is. The movie doesn't pretend to be anything other than a feel-good love story, and that's exactly what we get. Jennifer Lopez is fun to watch on screen, and it's even better that we get to hear her sing. She creates a character that can be pretentious and stuck up, but instead she's a pretty down-to-earth person who's looking for a meaningful and lasting relationship. Owen Wilson is reserved, but he's fun. His dry humor is always present, but never overbearing, and he has really good chemistry with Jennifer Lopez. The two make a convincing couple that we want to root for the entire time. And despite the runtime going on just a bit too long and some editing that felt more at home in a music video than in a film, the story, while it's very predictable and then even unbelievable for the majority of it, is cheerful, romantic, and it's fun to watch. There's no sex or nudity or violence, but there is some profanity. I give Marry Me 3.5 out of 5 couches. Are you watching any rom-coms for Valentine's Day? If so, what are you watching? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.